And I was this very stubborn American kid coming here thinking, we'll do it online or no other way.
Wouldn't it have been better to have the US as well?
And I think that probably hampered our growth the first few years. Even the most stable business in the world will have downtime. It's inevitable. If we had veered off into the offline model maybe a little bit, we could have probably made a better growth curve during those initial years.
How do you plan to stand out in this tech-dominant world?
AI has become a very big buzzword nowadays. We were always trying to be ahead of the curve in the world of AI. It was risky. When we first signed up for it, we were like, are we going to reap these kind of rewards or not? But later on, we look back, you're like, I can't believe I did that, or I can't believe I did this. But today we're a fairly successful firm, valued over $1 billion and about to go public sometime soon.
Do you have what it takes to become a publicly listed company?
You don't go public because you are seeking some valuation. It's a very long-term game. But I've been proven wrong in a million ways. I think right now, Upstox is one of the most stable brokerages out there. We have a 99.95% uptime.
Did you have to compromise the company's vision for growth? Was it the fear of Wall Street that scared you away? Upstox was a central sponsor for IPL. You withdrew that. What went wrong? Zerodha leads in revenue. Groww is dominating user numbers. What is it that you're doing differently? I'm Avandabash, and I have a question for you. Where do you usually see company CEOs being interviewed? Inside glass-walled cabins? Their plush corner office? Presidential suites? But have you ever seen a company CEO being interviewed in a setting like this? Welcome to the Boardroom Interrogation, where there's only one rule. We ask 21 hard questions, and the guest gets only 90 seconds to answer each one. Because here in the boardroom, we don't just talk business, we mean business. On today's episode, we're joined by one of the most visionary entrepreneurs who has changed the way India invests. From co-founding one of the most trusted trading platforms to making investing more accessible to millions, he has been at the forefront of the FinTech revolution in India for over a decade. Please welcome Ravi Kumar, co-founder and CEO of Upstox. Ravi, welcome to the Boardroom Interrogation. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Avan, for having me here today.
So you know the rules. There's going to be 21 questions, 90 seconds per answer, and I have my timer with me. So are you ready to start?
Let's do it.
Before founding Upstox, you were thriving in the United States in the year 2009. What prompted you to leave a profitable prop desk job and come back? Was it the fear of Wall Street that scared you away?
Not exactly that. I mean, we were very successful in the US, point taken, and we had an incredible run there. And then in 2008, when the world was in a very different state of affairs, there were actually not many opportunities in the US at that time. So we came back to India to see what was happening here. And we saw many things, I think like financial savings in India were still very low compared to the US. Financial household savings in the US are more than 100%. And in India, it was like 15% now. So back then it was even lower. So we thought it was an incredible opportunity to do something. I was very young at that time, so we didn't really think much. I don't think entrepreneurs sometimes think so much, they just take action. So we came here on a visit and we thought we'd maybe be here for a few years, and 16, 17 years later, I'm still here.
How much self-doubt did you carry? Was there ever that moment that you truly regretted leaving stability for risk?
Of course, I think every founder goes through that period, of doubt. And I think that doubt kind of also propels you, drives you. I didn't think of this that way. When you're in the middle of it, taking a risk and doing things, you don't think about all these things, right? But later on, we look back, you're like, I can't believe I did that, or I can't believe I did this. So there were points of doubt, there's hardships like any other journey in life, right? But today we're, a fairly successful firm, valued over $3.5–4 billion and about to go public sometime soon. So things have kind of worked out.
Okay. Can you admit to a decision personally that was high risk for Upstox that may have worked out or may not have, and give us reasons for both those outcomes?
I mean, to go back even further in time, perhaps, I think when we started Upstox, which was called something else initially, it was called RKSV. This is before Aadhaar launched, before internet is what we know it as today in India. It wasn't so highly penetrated. we were very stubborn that we would be only like an online only business. I come from the US where everything was online, and I was this very stubborn American kid coming here thinking we'll do it online or no other way, and our competition back then had already started expanding offline, and we thought we would not. And I think that probably hampered our growth the first few years, but then of course, once e-sign, eKYC, made it possible for people to open up an account fully digitally, and internet penetration did its magic. Very happy we didn't go the offline route. But I think those first, 2-3 years from say 2012 to 2015, 16, if we had veered off into the, offline model maybe a little bit, we could have probably made a, better growth curve during those initial years.
But there is growing customer acquisition, but many companies such as yours still struggle with retention and deeper monetization. What is the roadmap for Upstox? How do you go from converting the first-time traders into high-value customers who'll stick?
Great question, fantastic question. I think every fintech in India wants to basically do everything over time, and that's because the government has made it so easy for us to launch anything. I can be a payments app tomorrow, I can be a lending app tomorrow, I can be an insurance app the day after, and it's very easy to launch on top of the India stack, right? So I think we've been very focused. We started off as a trading platform because that's our background. I come from the world of trading. And then we, went into investing, and now we're going to get into advisory. We launched insurance as well. We have not really launched lending in a very big way. We may do that as well. But we want the brand to really stand for something, and that something is that if you believe in the India growth story, if you believe in growing your wealth, we perhaps live in one of the most incredible times of our lives, in Indian history, where economy is growing so rapidly. These next 20 years will be golden years. So we want Upstox to stand for wealth creation, and so anything we can do to help that brand ethos is what we launch next.
You said it yourself, you are looking at wealth creation, but today fintechs, with the help of the government, can do whatever it is that they want. So when the other fintechs look at embracing this kind of an opportunity, what is it that is making Upstox stand out from the others, from a Groww, from a Zerodha? What is it that you're doing differently?
Look, I think we all have our own growth paths, and we're all, I think we're all chasing new customers, so the vast majority of new Upstox customers today are new to market accounts. We're not really stealing from each other, so to speak, right? And number of unique demat accounts in India today, there's about maybe 120 million odd investors today in India. And over these next 5 years, that'll go to maybe double that, 250 million, right? That's like a quarter of the US population being added in the next 5 years, right? Very few places in the world will you be able to see this kind of growth potential, right? And it's just incredible. Like if you had told me this would happen like 10 years ago, I would say there's no way, but that's the kind of interest we're seeing now in customers coming to us and other folks in our industry, wanting to open up demat accounts and start their investment journey, invest better, trade better, just increase their wealth over time. That's what we're after. I think there's enough opportunity out there to go get our own share of healthy market share. And we want to make sure we grow profitably. So we have almost a 40% profit margin at Upstox, probably one of the highest in the fintech world, and just very proud of that.
You spoke about, being a sponsor for IPL, and Upstox was a central sponsor for IPL, but then you withdrew that. Was that a strategic retreat, or was it a decision that went wrong?
We didn't withdraw anything. So when you sponsor IPL, on the ground sponsor, you get like a 3 or 4 year commitment. Right, and now I think it's been up to 5 years. So we went through a whole commitment. Right? I think we had 3 years, so we sponsored it for the entire 3 year period. And it wasn't just IPL, by the way. We sponsored IPL, and then we were crazy enough, and it was an amazing opportunity enough for us to sponsor ICC as well, the World Cup as well. So we sponsored both for a period of 3 to 4 years. It was an incredible branding opportunity for Upstox. We all of a sudden became a so-called household name, and we had something like a month or month and a half to make our ads. Before that, we'd never made an ad before for TV. We had like 6 weeks to literally produce an IPL-ready set of ads in the middle of COVID, so it was, that was very stressful. It was risky, and like, I'm not gonna lie, it was when we first signed up for it, you know, we were like, are we gonna reap these kind of rewards or not? You know, but then, you know, and again, we were going through a phase at that time when there was incredible demand for demat accounts, like it is today, but it was a huge rush of demand. So it really propelled the brand to a whole new place. Maybe both properties at the same time was a bit of an overkill, but we never withdrew anything. You know, we went through the whole 3-4 years, and then after that, I think these are diminishing returns. You know, after the second or third year, the kind of brand uplift you get just gets minimal. So we haven't sponsored it after the 4 years. We didn't renew it.
There was a major goal within Upstox to go to the US, but why did the company not expand after having plans to explore the US market? What went wrong?
I spent a lot of time in the US and Canada, you know, along with my other founder as well, and Srini as well. And the US market is also very, very exciting. You know, if you look at the likes of, say, Robinhood, incredible growth they've had, right? So we've always had this idea that we can maybe launch what we built here in other countries, not just the US, but other geographies. But I think the India opportunities has been so incredible, right, over these past few years. And
but wouldn't it have been better to have the US as well?
We only have so many resources, right? So it's like you can do that. You know, we can begin installing a team international, and which is expensive, you know, and we can go down that path. But there's just been so much demand from within India. So we want to, like, what would be amazing for us is to become that next Schwab of the US, right? You have to be positioned. You have to be here long term, and we're ultimately, all of us are in brand creation businesses. You know, to become an institution, you have to just keep doing this again and again and again over multiple decades. That's how you become the HDFC and ICICI of the world. So I think just having this focus for India has been very, very a great thing for us. You know, and not kind of diverting your energy, you know, into other geographies.
Now, Upstox is backed by Tiger Global, Ratan Tata, very prolific investors. But at the same time, did you have to compromise the company's vision for growth like any other entrepreneur or startup might have to?
We've been very lucky that we've had incredibly supportive backers at Upstox. Tiger Global has been a fantastic fund that's backed us from day one. You know, they believed in the vision. They've been very supportive of what we wanted to do. Mr. Tata needs no introduction, right? He's an incredible soul, and he, you know, I think we gained so much by being associated with him, you know, and of course he's no more now, unfortunately, you know, but we've had many meetings with him, and his ask, you know, for Upstox, if I can just share this, has always been, you know, like, I'm Mr. Tata and I have access to incredible wealth advisors. How can Upstox do the same? You know, how can Upstox build something that democratizes my level of advisory and access to financial products and makes it available to the masses? That was kind of, you know, his ask from us when he put money into our business, and that association has just been the most magical thing for us. So I think we've not seen any negatives at all, I would say, from having these two incredible parties backing Upstox, and we have others as well, but I know other companies may not have the same, you know, so I see where your question's coming from, but we've not had that problem.
Okay. Now, Upstox says that it's democratizing investing, but Zerodha leads in revenue, Groww is dominating user numbers. Is the competition giving you sleepless nights? Are you worried about the competitive landscape?
So I still think it's very early days in India, right? And I think we do have fantastic competition, you know, and they're all great companies, frankly, you know, and competition fuels you to do more and more and better and better. And all these companies have had their own growth trajectories, I was telling you earlier, right? I think like Upstox today is run rating at, you know, more than 600 crores of PAT. We have, you know, like a 40% plus profit margin. Well on track to become a public company soon, and very proud of what we've achieved. The way we operate is we want to be a profitable business and just keep building carefully and not aggressively just pursue growth. Of course, we want to keep growing, right? but do so sustainably. And we believe that is a long-term game. Again, the companies I mentioned to you earlier have been around for 40, 50, 60 years, right? So to build an institution, you have to do the right things again and again and again. It's not like a quick story. It's a very long, drawn-out cycle, multi-year cycle, multi-decade cycle. That's the kind of business that we want to build.
Okay. 600 crore PAT, 40% profit margin. Is the run rate going to continue? And what's going to drive it?
I think so. I think one of the things we're trying to focus on is getting into more and more adjacencies. That's very important. Carefully, right? The only thing about India that's somewhat scary also is that it's very easy for a fintech like ours with such a brand to get into everything overnight. It's like when you walk into an Indian restaurant today, you can buy Chinese, you can buy American, you can buy continental, you can buy Mexican, Italian. It becomes confused, right? So I think in the search of profits and revenue, it's very important to stay true to the brand. And what we want the brand to stand for is we want to be a brand that helps you invest in a very honest way, in a very easy way. And as long as we can keep building adjacencies that uplifts this brand ethos, we're going to keep doing so.
Now, 85% of Upstox users, I understand, are from tier 2 and 3 cities. Are you deliberately targeting less tech-savvy customers?
I used to think, to be honest with you, that tier 2, tier 3 towns, folks from those places maybe are less tech-savvy, but I've been proven wrong in a million ways. I do site visit, I visit, customers all the time, and sometimes you'll see like farmers, or you'll see like someone from a smaller village, way more tech savvy than, like some super MBA from Delhi or Bombay. It's just, and sometimes it's also because they rely on technology to be able to uplift their lives, right? So like that phone is helping that farmer do much more today, and they're dependent on it. The reason why Upstox was able to take off is because all of a sudden, folks from smaller towns did not have access to the financial products that they had earlier. Like they would have to walk to open up a demat account. All of a sudden they were able to open up a demat account on their phone. So these folks, I think, like from smaller towns, are actually more digitally savvy than, not all the time I'm saying, but I find them to be, because they leverage the phone and internet more to be able to do what they need to do to get ahead in life.
But, critics argue that Upstox's reliance on discount pricing comes at the cost of product innovation. Are you sacrificing long-term competitive advantage for rapid scale?
So I think pricing gets people in the door, right? And that's even less so now, but back in the day, it got people in the door, but ultimately after that, it's about the user experience, So, you have to keep innovating. So we're shipping, like every month we have 2 to 3 releases, right? And the innovation cycle is basically one of the biggest moats we have, right? If you can call it a moat, and that's how we stand out. And I think at this point in time, if you look at all the top brokerage houses, I think the pricing is almost all the same, where all of us are charging basically the same price per order.
You're talking about innovation, but at the end of the day, you're in an industry that could potentially be disrupted by AI. So how do you plan to stand out in this tech-dominant world?
We're very well placed at Upstox, I think, for AI. We have some of the best engineers in the industry working here. We were always trying to be ahead of the curve in the world of AI, like Srinir, founder and CTO, is from Urbana-Champaign, one of the hotspots of AI. So he's always going to conferences, learning more and more, and implementing and deploying AI across the spectrum, whether it's allowing engineers to do more and become more productive, or whether that's deploying AI to benefit the customer, right? So we have Upstox AI, we call it Upstox AI, and it's launching in phases, right? So we have already, like if you open up the app, you'll have AI-powered insights, right? And it just appears almost magically, where it knows a lot about your investment behavior, trading behavior, and it just gives you very good advice, right? That's very relevant to who you are and what you're doing at that point in time. So I think AI has become a very big buzzword nowadays, right? And it has 2 forms. One is, how does the company leverage AI to become more productive? Like that same engineer, how can they do more? That's one way to look at AI, to improve employee productivity. Second is, how do you deploy AI to just do more for the customer? So on both fronts, I think we're actually very well placed already, and I think it'll just only accelerate going forward.
But, technical glitches is part and parcel of it. You guys have had your fair share of technical glitches as well. Did that make you lose credibility, and what was the biggest learning from it?
When you're processing millions of orders a day, right, and you have millions and millions of accounts around the country with millions of logins every day, even the most stable business in the world will have downtime. It's inevitable. And like you said, all of us have faced downtime. We've also had our share of downtime in the past. I think right now, Upstox is one of the most stable brokerages out there. We have a 99.995% uptime. In fact, we have a place on the website that's publicly viewable that you can see the uptime statistics over the past 2-3 quarters. We're so confident in our uptime. The only mistake I think people make is when you go down, are your learnings, are you able to take those learnings and ensure you don't go down again in the same way is the most important thing. We've also had our fair share of downtime in the past, and every time we've come up, the system gets better and better and better, right? So today we enjoy one of the highest uptimes. We have a team of engineers, system engineers, network engineers that are deployed 24/7 just to ensure that the system doesn't go down. And we're very comfortable sharing all that with the people.
Now, nearly 40% of new demat accounts are opened by people under the age of 30. Upstox as well has 80% of users who are millennials. How do you want to turn this strong youth interest into long-lasting engagement? Are you worried that they're only here to make a quick buck?
And we're very proud that we're catering to a younger audience. And it's not just because we're specifically catering to that audience. I think India is a very young country, right? So that is where the population mass is. And the good thing about getting, folks introduced to the brand and the offering early is that as you scale and as you launch more and more products, those customers can grow alongside you. So that's what we want, right? We want to keep launching more products to help those customers as they go through their own life. We want to be growing alongside them. So I think this, getting a younger audience, we thought that maybe like they don't have much money or something, right? But India is an aspiring middle class, right? Folks enter young and they start making more and more money. They have more and more deployable wealth, more and more deployable savings that they want to, save. And, we just want to be that brand of choice that helps them save better and better as they grow in their own life journey.
So you spoke of plans to go public, but today investors are a lot more attuned. Profitability is not the only metric. You need to have a lot more on the table. What is the valuation going to be like when you guys IPO? What do you have in mind? And do you have what it takes to become a publicly listed company?
We've always wanted to be, a publicly listed company. We exist because of public markets. We live in a country as wonderful as India, which has an incredible ecosystem of amazing regulation that protects investor interests, of world-class exchanges, and a customer base that's rapidly growing, right? So we're very lucky to be able to do what we do. And of course, we have this whole India FinTech stack, on the back of which we've been able to exist and do what we do. We don't really think about valuation so much. Our belief has just always been, just do the right thing again and again and again, and good things will happen. It's like you can't worry about the valuation so much. That's just our guiding principles. I think we want to be a sustainable, long-term, high-quality fintech that's serving customers, that's building a brand long-term, and that's doing so with integrity, and doing the right thing again and again and again. If you just keep at this, 20 years of compounding will create an incredible amount of value creation, right? So you don't go public because you are seeking some valuation. I think that's not the right way to look at it. I think it's a very long-term game.
Have you faced a lot of internal disagreements with co-founders, with investors? How have you dealt with it?
Yes, I think like any other set of relationships, you do have healthy disagreements. And I think the way we ultimately answer is, again, we've been together for the past 15, 16 years. But the way you kind of deal with it is you ultimately think about the customer. What would the customer want us to be deciding on right now? Another lens that we see this through is, may even sound a little bit cheesy, is what would Mr. Tata say? Because Mr. Tata was a man of, he had a certain way of dealing with issues and stuff, and integrity, right? So if it's a question of, what to do, whether what I'm doing is right or wrong, we would always ask, what would Mr. Tata do? in this situation? And that's these kind of two things I think helps us answer. And once we agree on an answer, we all kind of, agree and move forward.
In a cutthroat fintech space, there's a lot of controversy. There's quite a bit of pressure as well. What is the hardest lesson that you have learned on this journey that you want to share with other founders?
See, I think sometimes, especially an early stage founder, I would just say, don't overthink, because if you start overthinking, it's analysis by paralysis, and you'll find a million reasons not to do something. That's just the way we are, right? We're always looking at the risk involved in doing something, and you won't go for it. There's a million reasons I can say I should not do this or not do that. But if your heart says to do something, if you're really driven to do something, there's a reason why you're thinking that, so you should just sometimes just go for it and you'll figure your way out. That's the one advice I give everybody, is don't overthink things. If you really feel strongly about something, if there's some passion for it, just do it.
But is there anything, I know you said don't do analysis paralysis, but anything that could go wrong, anything that gives you sleepless nights, or what's the biggest worry when it comes to Upstox?
Look, I think we're in a highly regulated space, right? So there's always regulation that can change, and it's not just for us, but it's, I think, any fintech, and we understand that, so we have, we're always trying to think, what can happen if X, Y, Z happens? What would we do? So I think one part of, which again is what we would want to do as a business, long-term, high-quality business, is to diversify into other adjacencies. That makes sense, that stands again for wealth creation for the user. I think regulation is, regulatory change is always a risk in any business, not just as a fintech in India, but I think anywhere in the world, right? It's just, if you're operating in a country which is highly regulated, which is India, there's always a risk of regulations changing once in a while. So it's our job to be, adapt to what could happen. And if something happens, just have a plan in place.
Have you ever had to deal with that? Have you had your plans in place?
We have plans, right? So I don't think, nothing has come our way, I would say. I mean, COVID was, of course, crazy, unexpected. It wasn't a regulation, but that was like a force majeure, so to speak, right? So we have plans in place, right? As again, we've been in business for so long now that we've seen so much that I don't think there's anything new that can come up where we'll be totally shocked or something like that. So the longer you are able to kind of last, you learn, right? Just like you were asking about system uptime, right? And glitches and stuff. I think glitch is a more technical thing you were talking about, but just business downturns also happen, right? We're in a cyclical business and cycles go up and down, and you have to learn. Every time there is a downturn that happens, the importance of a business that seeks to become an institution is you have to learn from that. We're always, analyzing, and thinking about what can happen and what we would do if this were to happen, so there's all these plans are always in place. They're very dynamic.
Many companies have the blueprint ready, but it doesn't always end up, delivering on its promises. So how do you ensure that when you guys started Upstox, that actually did translate into user trust, into deeper engagement, and actually became a profitable company?
We always had the North Star of delivering an incredible user experience, with a lot of trust, integrity built in, and also building a profitable business. Because if the business is not profitable, it's not sustainable. And to build an institution, you have to be a sustainable business. That's how you last multiple decades. So these have always been our ground, kind of like our guiding principles from day zero, basically. And it helps to have this kind of value system, right? And written down and going to it again and again and again. That's really helped us a lot.
A final question, how are you going to convince investors who are on the fence that your financial future is secure? And are you going to become the next financial powerhouse like the HDFCs or the ICICIs of the world? Are you on track?
That is the ambition, right? I have immense respect for institution building. And I think institution building is very, very important in the world of financial services because the brand has to stand for trust and integrity. This is something we learned from Mr. Tata again and again. So I think we've been doing well in this regard, because we did face a lot of issues in our 17-year lifespan, like any other business would. So I think, the ability to withstand and move on, and remain profitable and keep building and keep servicing the customer is what's allowed us to kind of get this far, and we're very, very strong financially now. We're very, very strong from a product DNA perspective. We have an incredible team, and I think we take care of our customers. When a customer onboards Upstox, we think of it as a relative onboarding with us. I know it sounds a little bit cheesy even maybe, but that's how we think about it, right? And how can we service that customer better and better is what we strive to do. And again, there's a very long-term mission for us. It's not something, we're not, here today, gone tomorrow kind of business at all, right? So to build something that'll last these next 50, 100 years, you have to think long-term. And the way you do that is you just think about the customer again and again, build for them, and do so sustainably.
Ravi, thank you so much for joining us on the Boardroom Interrogation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My honor. Thank you.